Welcome to the deep dive. We've got a really interesting listener question today.
Oh, yeah. What's it about?
Well, it ties together vertigo, low cortisol levels, emotional regulation, and maybe even chronic disease down the line.
Wow, okay, that's quite a mix. Physiology, psychology,
Yeah,
the whole picture.
exactly. So our mission today is to kind of unpack these connections, see if there are early clues, understand how the mind and body really talk to each other.
Sounds fascinating. It really highlights how connected everything is in the body. So where should we begin? Maybe that first link. Vertigo and low cortisol.
Yeah, let's start there. That dizzy feeling when you stand up too fast. Postural hypotension. Our sources definitely confirm a link to low cortisol.
Right. That makes sense physiologically.
So in conditions like Addison's disease,
Where the adrenals aren't making enough cortisol.
right, or secondary adrenal insufficiency, maybe pituitary issues, or even from long-term steroid use.
Exactly. Because cortisol, well, it does a lot, but one key thing is helping maintain vascular tone.
Vascular tone. You mean keeping blood vessels sort of tight enough?
Pretty much, yeah. It helps them constrict properly when you change posture, like standing up.
Mhm.
It also supports the sympathetic nervous system, the fight or flight response.
Okay.
So if cortisol levels are low, that response can be sluggish. Blood pressure drops when you stand, and boom, dizziness, vertigo.
Got it. Okay, so that connection's clear. Now here's the intriguing part of the question. Could this be an early warning sign, like about emotional or mental regulation?
Ah, the mind-body connection. It's definitely real. We know chronic stress absolutely impacts our physiology.
Yeah, everyone feels that tension, headaches, stomach issues.
Right. And it directly involves the HPA axis, the hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis. That's the command center for stress.
And cortisol is the main hormone it controls, right?
Precisely. Now, here's the interesting bit. Prolonged stress doesn't always mean high cortisol. Sometimes the system can get, well, kind of worn out or desensitized.
So you could end up with lower baseline cortisol from too much chronic stress.
It's possible, yeah. The HPA axis might become less responsive. Plus, we also know that struggles with emotional regulation, feeling overwhelmed or unable to cope consistently, that can impact your immune function and inflammation levels over time.
Okay, so it's complex. Stress affects cortisol regulation, emotional state affects immunity. It's all linked.
It really is. But crucially, it's not like everyone under stress develops low cortisol and vertigo. It's not a simple A causes B.
Right, not deterministic.
Exactly. But if someone has persistent postural hypotension, that dizziness and tests show low cortisol, and there's no obvious medical explanation like Addison's,
Then maybe.
then yeah, our sources suggest it could be an early signal. A sign that maybe the body's overall stress system, encompassing both the physiological HPA axis and the psychological coping mechanisms, is under strain. Kind of out of balance.
An early whisper, like you said earlier. Okay, so if that's an early sign, what about the listener's final point? This idea that ignoring it could lead to something more serious, like autoimmune or inflammatory diseases.
Right, the progression question. This is where we need to be a bit careful. It's more speculative, more about potential contributing factors than direct causation.
So low cortisol doesn't cause autoimmune disease.
No, the sources are clear on that. It's not a direct cause. Autoimmune diseases are super complex. Genetics, infections, environmental triggers all play a role.
Okay.
But think about cortisol's other job. It's a powerful anti-inflammatory.
Ah, right. Like when you get a cortisone shot.
Exactly.
So
So
crap.
if the HPA axis is dysregulated, maybe meaning cortisol levels are chronically low or the body isn't responding to cortisol properly, that ability to dampen inflammation might be compromised.
So it can't put the brakes on inflammation effectively.
Potentially, yes.
Uh-uh.
It might not start an autoimmune disease, but if someone already has that predisposition or maybe early stages are brewing, a compromised cortisol response could mean inflammation isn't controlled well. It might amplify the process or make flares worse.
So stress is often a trigger for autoimmune flares, and maybe this HPA axis dysregulation is part of why stress has that effect, because the body's natural anti-inflammatory response isn't working optimally.
That's a really good way to think about it, yes. The dysregulation doesn't cause the underlying condition, but it might weaken the body's ability to manage it, especially the inflammatory component.
Okay, that makes sense. It's not the cause, but it can pour fuel on the fire, so to speak.
A good analogy. It reduces resilience.
So wrapping this up then, the key takeaway seems to be that things like vertigo from postural hypotension, especially if linked to low cortisol without a clear disease like Addison's. Well, they can be more than just annoying symptoms.
They can be signals.
Yeah, signals of a deeper imbalance potentially involving chronic stress, maybe difficulties with emotional regulation, affecting that whole HPA axis system.
Right. And while these signals don't automatically mean you'll get a chronic disease.
Ignoring them, letting that imbalance persist, could weaken your body's overall resilience. It may, as the sources hinted, sort of set the stage where chronic inflammatory or autoimmune issues are more likely to take hold or worsen if other factors are also present.
Perfectly put. It's about recognizing these potential early warnings,
Yeah,
the interplay between our stress response, our cortisol, our blood pressure regulation, and our emotional state. They're all talking to each other.
definitely food for thought. So, considering this whole picture, this potential for a deeper imbalance, it leads to a final question for you, the listener. What are some initial steps you might consider to better understand or perhaps manage your body's stress response? Something to ponder after this deep dive.